Hey heroes, and welcome to another incredible episode of History of the Marvel Universe. This channel is sponsored in part by Patreon supporters. If you would like to contribute and vote in monthly polls that help decide what topics get covered on the channel, then you can sign up for an amount of your choosing over at patreon.com/MaryMarvelite. The link is in the description below, along with other places you can find me. Dr. Robert Bruce Banner was a brilliant nuclear physicist whose life was forever changed when intense exposure to gamma radiation caused him to involuntarily transform into a savage creature called the Incredible Hulk. Benjamin Jacob Grimm was a celebrated pilot and trained astronaut whose life was changed forever when exposure to cosmic rays permanently transformed him into a thick-skinned thing. While Bruce Banner's status quo and abilities have shifted and changed many times over the years, he often has little to no control over his transformations, and many consider his destructive Hulk persona to be a menace. Ben Grimm, meanwhile, joined his closest friends to form the Fantastic Four, a group of superhuman adventurers whose heroic exploits soon became world famous, and so despite his rocky exterior, the ever-lovin' blue-eyed Thing became the idol of millions. As you can see, there are many differences between these two men, but of all the superhuman mortals to appear on Earth early in the Marvel Age of Heroes, the Thing and the Hulk were among the most powerful in terms of raw physical strength, and they have clashed a number of times over the years. Now, it's no secret that the Hulk is the strongest one there is, and so we're not going to be debating who would win in a fight to the death, or comparing feats, scaling powers, or anything like that. Instead, we're going to take a look at the many clashes that the Thing and the Hulk have had over the years, exploring the reasons and circumstances behind each fight, and seeing who actually did win. Their first meeting was fairly early in the Marvel Age when the Hulk-obsessed General Thunderbolt Ross enlisted the Fantastic Four to help defeat the Green Goliath. Ross explained that a number of military installations had been smashed by something large and powerful, and that the Hulk was the most likely culprit. This was before the Hulk's identity was known to the military, and so Banner, still working under Ross as a civilian scientist, also met the FF and offered to help find the saboteur, who he referred to as the Wrecker. Sure enough, it turned out that the Wrecker was Banner's recently hired assistant, Carl Court, who was secretly a member of a subversive communist organization. By kidnapping the Hulk's friend and ally, Rick Jones, Court was able to ensure that the Jade Giant indeed battled the Fantastic Four, hoping to drive the heroes away before he was discovered. Initially, 3 of the 4 attacked, with Susan hanging back since this was before she learned to wield the invisible force fields that made her significantly more effective in combat. However, the Hulk thwarted Mr. Fantastic's attempts to subdue him, twirling free of his elastic body, and knocked down the Human Torch with a supersonic shockwave generated by simply clapping his hands together. Still on his feet, the Thing attacked the Hulk alone, but this one-on-one clash was a short one. It soon seemed as though the larger Hulk would gain the upper hand, but before the fight could progress further, the Green Goliath was struck by an energy beam from underground. This knocked the Hulk down, interrupting the battle before a winner could be decided. The Thing and the Invisible Girl investigated the source of the beam and found Carl Court, who wanted to eliminate the heroes. Fortunately, Sue's invisibility powers allowed her to subdue Court without incident and rescue Rick Jones. While underground, Ben Grimm also encountered the giant robot that Court had used to frame the Hulk, quickly overpowering and destroying it. With the Hulk's innocence proven, the FF abandoned their hunt for him, but of course this would be far from their last battle. After this, the Hulk helped found the Mighty Avengers, but left the team soon thereafter when he became convinced that the other members hated him. The Hulk subsequently clashed with his former teammates, later deciding to challenge them to a final showdown after learning that they had replaced him with the veteran hero, Captain America. Rick Jones was also an ally to the Avengers during this time, and so the Hulk assumed that Rick had abandoned him, further fueling his irrational hatred. Ironically, while the Hulk returned to New York to find the Avengers, they were searching for him in his usual stomping grounds in the American Southwest. It fell to the Fantastic Four to defend the city, but Reed was sick with a viral infection at the time, while Johnny and Sue were once again taken out of the fight relatively quickly. This resulted in Ben taking on the Hulk alone, leading to their first prolonged one-on-one fight. Initially, the Thing proved himself to be more agile than his larger foe, allowing him to land the first punch. However, the Hulk was unrelenting and tore through buildings and buses to strike back at his opponent. Furthermore, the Hulk's reflexes were surprisingly quick, and when he got his hands on the Thing, he threw him into the air with so much force that Ben had to stop himself by grabbing onto the edge of a nearby roof. The Hulk then further proved his strength, shaking the entire building until the Thing was forced to drop back down. Ben attempted to fight smart, shocking the Hulk with live wires that he pulled up from underground, but their battle continued to rage across Manhattan until they fell into the Hudson River. With his stronger lungs, the Hulk tried to hold the Thing underwater, but Ben used a judo strike to break free and escaped to a nearby boat. The Hulk pursued and destroyed the boat, but the Thing was able to bring the fight up onto the George Washington Bridge, where he attempted to bind the Green Goliath with suspension cables. However, as the Hulk grew angrier, his strength only increased, while the Thing began to grow weary as the fight went on. In the end, while Ben had tried to make the most of every advantage he had, he was unable to contend with the Hulk's raw strength and endurance, and so this round unequivocally went to the Incredible Hulk. Now, the Thing did ultimately get back up to continue the fight, but was soon aided by the Avengers and the other members of the Fantastic Four, and even then the battle only came to an end because Rick Jones used a gamma capsule to force the Hulk to revert back to Bruce Banner. The next time they clashed, it was after the Hulk's dual identity became widely known. Wanting to help Bruce, Reed Richards publicly announced that he had devised a way to cure the Hulk, luring Banner to the Baxter Building to receive it. Richards enlisted the police to help secure the building and ensure that Banner got inside without incident, but one of the cops who was supposed to stand guard convinced a fellow officer to take his place without authorization. As a result, his replacement wasn't properly briefed on the situation, and not recognizing Banner inadvertently caused him to transform into the Hulk. This once again led to a situation in which the Thing tried to hold off the Hulk, but recognized that he was outmatched in terms of raw strength. This encounter was another brief one, which ended when the Thing dodged the Hulk's attack, causing the Green Goliath to inadvertently leap out of the Baxter Building. After that, Reed Richards used his own calculations in conjunction with data recorded by Banner himself to convert his sonic blaster into a weapon capable of subduing the Hulk. I will note that Richards and Banner did successfully work together to give Bruce full control over his Hulk transformations and form. However, this cure was later undone and rendered ineffective by one of the Hulk's most persistent foes, the Leader. Later, Mr. Fantastic attempted to endow Ben with the ability to shift back and forth between his human and Thing forms. However, as a side effect of this treatment, Ben grew more aggressive and violent, ultimately going on a rampage in New York. Reed attempted to recruit Bruce to help him find a solution to this problem, but as Banner made his way to the Baxter Building once again, his cab passed close by the conflict between the Thing and the police, causing his Hulk persona to seize control and challenge his old foe once again. This was another prolonged battle, and while the Thing boasted that he was holding back in their previous encounters, he still recognized the Hulk as a powerful foe and attempted to use his speed and his surroundings to his advantage, striking from a relative distance with statues and trees to keep the Green Goliath off balance. They fought their way up to the rooftops and back down again to the streets, and this time the Thing did a good job of holding his own. At one point, the Hulk grabbed him from behind and tried to choke him out, but despite the monster's iron grip, Ben was able to grab his leg and use the leverage to break free. As the fight continued, Ben's girlfriend, Alicia Masters, attempted to intervene and talk him down, but as she got close, the Thing struck the Hulk with so much force that it shattered the sidewalk around them, causing a small piece of concrete to strike Alicia in the head. As this happened, Ben heard her voice and turned his attention towards her, allowing the Hulk to catch him off guard and lay him out with one final punch. With his foe defeated, the Hulk reverted to human form once again. Okay, so technically the Hulk won that bout, but one could argue that he only landed the final blow due to outside interference. Regardless, this is still the second time an actual prolonged one-on-one fight between the two resulted in a Hulk victory. In the wake of that fight, Ben Grimm's sanity was restored along with his permanent Thing form, and he decided that he valued his personality and relationship with Alicia far more than his physical appearance. The Hulk later had another brief clash with the Fantastic Four after escaping from S.H.I.E.L.D. custody in New York. The Hulk and the Thing had a bit of a scuffle, and while the FF were also aided by the likes of Daredevil and Spider-Man, the Thing did get in one good punch during this fight, knocking the Hulk back, but it didn't appear to do any real damage, and in the end Mr. Fantastic, once again, subdued the Hulk with the power of science. Later, there was an incident in which an alien named Kurgo, who had clashed with the FF early in their career, sought to enslave the Thing for his own ends. He soon learned that the Hulk was even stronger and elected to use him instead, but was challenged by the Leader, who wanted to use the gamma-powered giant in his own plots. To settle this dispute, the two villains decided to wager on a battle between the two man-monsters, abducting them both and bringing them to an abandoned ghost town in the American Southwest. If the Thing won, Kurgo would lay claim to both combatants, and if the Hulk won, then the Leader would. To instigate the battle, the Leader claimed that he had planted an Ultrex bomb in the town, which was capable of wiping out all life on Earth, and that Grimm would have to defeat the Hulk and destroy it before the 30-minute timer ran out. The Thing and the Hulk traded blows, knocking each other through buildings. However, Kurgo was secretly beaming cosmic energy directly into Grimm's body, doubling his strength and allowing him to gain the upper hand long enough to destroy the Ultrex bomb and realize that it was a complete fake. Kurgo attempted to claim that he had won. However, when the Leader learned that the alien had cheated, he declared himself the winner by default. Enraged and indignant, Kurgo commanded his robot servant to destroy all of the Earthlings. However, the Thing and the Hulk struck in unison, making short work of the android attacker. Sometime after that, Banner returned to the Baxter Building in the hopes of being cured once again, and upon learning of a new device that Reed had built, offered to attempt to try and return Ben to human form as well. However, this experiment inadvertently triggered Banner's transformation into the Hulk, causing the machine to explode. This also had the bizarre side effect of placing Ben Grimm's mind in the body of the Hulk, and vice versa. The Hulk attacked in the body of the Thing, and while the Hulk's body was stronger, Grimm was thrown off by the increased bulk. Furthermore, when Ben's ally Thundra attempted to intervene, she naturally attacked the one who looked like the Hulk. The Hulk and the Thing continued to fight in each other's bodies, fittingly ending up in a boxing arena in Madison Square Garden. While the Hulk's instinctual savagery allowed him to use Ben's body effectively, Grimm began to grow more accustomed to the Hulk's body and used his increased strength to fight back. Meanwhile, Mr. Fantastic figured out what had happened and used a powerful sedative to revert the Hulk's body back to Bruce Banner, which also forced Ben's mind to return to his own body, undoing the switch. Later, there was an incident in which the Fantastic Four were asked by a military officer, Colonel Sellers, to help capture the Hulk, who had been rampaging through the Midwest. This time all four of them worked together to take the Jade Giant down, with Johnny using his flame to knock him off balance, Reed restraining him, Susan cutting off his air supply with a force field, and Ben delivering a knockout punch to a nearly asphyxiated Hulk. The Hulk was defeated and imprisoned, but this time the Thing turned against his allies to free the Green Goliath, and the two man-monsters went on a rampage together in St. Louis. This is actually because Alicia Masters' stepfather, the Puppet Master, was secretly using his radioactive clay to mentally manipulate Ben Grimm from prison. When the Hulk tried to seriously injure Reed Richards, the Thing came to his senses and struck the Hulk to save his best friend's life. The ensuing fight was another relatively short one, and Ben Grimm was able to hold his own for a while, but this time continued exposure to the Hulk's gamma radiation had the unexpected effect of reverting the Thing to human form, bringing the battle to an abrupt end. After that, Ben used an armored suit designed by Reed to mimic his Thing powers for a while, but inevitably got them back for real. After all of that, during the time when there was a television series loosely based on the life of the Hulk, Ben Grimm grew jealous and traveled to California to pitch his own show. Meanwhile, the Hulk was annoyed by the use of his likeness and also headed to Hollywood, leading to another dust-up. The two traded a few blows, but the Thing had other problems as a group of kidnappers were trying to abduct the director, Mr. Jusko, and aspiring actress Karen Page. In the end, this kidnapping attempt was foiled, and the Hulk was satisfied with the promise that the TV show wouldn't damage his reputation. However, the Thing was less enthralled about the quality of his own program's pilot episode, and refused to endorse it. There are also examples of the Hulk and the Thing working together, like when the Stranger recruited them to help save the universe from the Olympian god of death, Pluto. Although even on an adventure like that, they couldn't help but trade a few blows. Sometime later, the Hulk and the Thing were both abducted and beamed to the commercial, free-orbiting planet Matriculon, which specialized in change and was home to master terraformers, shapeshifters, and alchemists. There they met the one who'd summoned them, an alien bureaucrat named Stambin Mallet. He explained that a scientist named Mal Addy had discovered the next big change in nutrition, and while the government wanted this new innovation to be marketed fairly, Addy was kidnapped by Nasty McBurn, a gangster working for the notorious Banger McCrusher mob and food outlet. Mallet tasked the two superhuman Earthlings with retrieving Addy, promising them 2 wishes in return. Anything from curing hunger and disease on Earth to untold wealth, or even returning them both to human form. The Thing and the Hulk agreed to help, adventuring across the planet and ultimately coming face to face with Banger McCrusher himself, a gigantic alien who had observed television broadcasts depicting both of their exploits on Earth and had himself physically altered to resemble an amalgamation of the Hulk and the Thing. However, the enormous gangster stood little chance against the two powerful superhumans, particularly when they both struck in unison. Although Grimm was perturbed to learn that the innovation he'd adventured across the planet to retrieve was essentially just a well-received new condiment. Stambin Mallet reminded him of the wishes he was owed, and while Ben carefully weighed his options and tried to consider what would be best for mankind as a whole, the Hulk simply blurted out that he wanted food and to be returned home. And before the Thing could protest, it was already done, much to his annoyance. While the Hulk was satisfied and declared that the Rockman, as he called him, was his friend, Ben reared up and prepared to smash a boulder over the Hulk's head. Although we never actually get to see what happened after that. The next time they fought was when the power-hungry magician Xandu obtained an artifact called the Ruby of Domination and mentally enslaved the Hulk, pulling the Green Goliath from the crossroads of dimensions where Doctor Strange had exiled him. After being recruited by Strange, the Thing once again battled the Hulk, who was more sluggish than usual because of Xandu's spell. Furthermore, the mind control prevented the Hulk's anger from mounting, allowing Ben to press his advantage, using speed and agility to pepper his foe with quick, precise strikes, slowly wearing him down. The good news is that these repeated blows allowed the Hulk to shake off Xandu's mental control. The bad news is that the Hulk kept fighting the Thing anyway and was no longer nerfed by Xandu's mental control. The Thing attempted to stop his foe by shocking him with a live wire grabbed from underground, but the Hulk shrugged off this pain quickly and slammed Ben down through the concrete into the sewers. Their fight continued in the underground tunnels, and the ensuing destruction caused an entire condemned city block to come crashing down onto the Hulk. Ben worried that Banner might have been seriously injured by this, but the Hulk soon emerged from the rubble little worse for wear. Recognizing that he was outmatched, the Thing attempted to end the fight quickly and make his escape, leading the Hulk to a nearby pier before wrecking it and sending the Green Goliath into the river. During this respite, Doctor Strange contacted the Thing once again, informing him that Xandu had imprisoned him and that it would be up to Ben to destroy the Ruby of Domination before Xandu merged with it and became unstoppable. Sure enough, the Hulk soon leapt out of the water, and the two brawlers continued their fight across the city while Ben made his way back to the Sanctum Sanctorum. As further testament to the Hulk's strength, the Thing nailed the Green Goliath with a solid punch to the jaw, but the Hulk shook off this blow almost immediately and counterattacked with a strike that probably would have killed anyone less durable than the Thing. The fight continued, with Grimm displaying impressive endurance against such a powerful foe, and once they were close enough to Strange's sanctum, the Thing provoked the Hulk into charging directly at him, sending them both flying into the sanctum, where Ben succeeded in destroying the ruby with only seconds to spare. The Hulk attempted to continue the fight, but without the ruby empowering him, Xandu was no match for Strange, who freed himself from imprisonment and placed the Hulk in a mystically induced trance. Exhausted by this ordeal, Strange decided to return Grimm to the Baxter Building while transporting the Hulk to the Utah desert until his strength recovered enough to send him back to the crossroads. However, in trying to do this at the same time, the Strange inadvertently mixed them up, sending the Thing to the middle of the desert. Jumping ahead yet again, there was later an incident in which the Hulk was reverted to his original gray form, a state in which he was more intelligent and crafty than his savage green form, but also more selfish and ruthless. Also notable for today is that the Grey Hulk wasn't quite as large and powerful as the green one. Meanwhile, Ben Grimm was exposed to a large dose of cosmic rays for the second time, and further mutated into a spiky Thing form in which he was even stronger than before. Later, the Hulk was thought to have been killed when the leader destroyed a city in Arizona with a stolen gamma bomb, but secretly survived and later moved to Las Vegas, where he took the name Joe Fixit and became an enforcer for a local casino owner. As one of the few humans to realize that the Hulk was still alive, Dr. Doom attempted to use Fixit for his own purposes, and manipulated the Jolly Grey Giant into attacking the Thing once again, ambushing his opponent atop the FF's headquarters at the time for Freedom's Plaza. The two fell to the street below and quickly started trading blows, but this time the Thing had the edge, as the strength of his mutated spiked form seemed to surpass that of the Grey Hulk. Mind you, it wasn't an easy fight as the two opponents punched each other into the sewers and back up onto the streets, but in the end the Thing had Fix-It on the ropes, and the Hulk was relieved that his opponent didn't recognize him, preserving his reputation. Now, technically this fight was interrupted before Grimm delivered the finishing blow, since Dr. Doom unleashed a robotic duplicate of the Hulk to join the fray, but just before the robot arrived, Fix-It had quietly admitted defeat, so I think it's fair to give Grimm the win and say that the spiked Thing is at least capable of beating the Grey Hulk. I'll also note that the Hulk robot that Doom employed here was not built by Doom himself, but two engineers at the Maryland Institute of Technology. Referred to as the Cosmic Hulk due to its ability to absorb cosmic energy, this robot was previously defeated by the Eternals, but was subsequently found by Dr. Doom, who repaired it and kept it hidden beneath New York for future use. The spiked Thing then battled the Cosmic Hulk, but soon realized that his opponent's strength was not increasing with rage. After that, it didn't take Grimm long to figure out that the Hulk he was fighting was just a robot. After that, he pinned his opponent to the ground, pushed both of his fists against the machine's chest, and applied constant pressure until the Cosmic Hulk's outer shell finally buckled and cracked, allowing Grimm to wreck the machinery within. Having watched this, the Grey Hulk realized that he couldn't beat the spiked Thing with raw strength alone, and would have to fight smart to stand a chance. Coming up with a plan, Fix-It lured Grimm to Central Park, where he kept his distance, striking from the shadows and running away to wear the Thing down and tire him out. Without time to recover from his previous battles, the Thing started to grow winded after an hour of this, allowing the Grey Hulk to knock him into a nearby lake. Fix-It followed and not only held the Thing underwater, but held his mouth open and forced the air out of his lungs with the Heimlich maneuver. On the verge of drowning, Ben struck the Hulk with two fists at once, breaking free of his grip and climbing back onto land. Fix-It followed again, and it wasn't until the Grey Hulk spoke that Grimm realized who he really was. In any event, the Hulk then struck his weakened opponent with one more blow, knocking the Thing out and claiming victory. As Grimm lost consciousness, the Hulk mocked him, claiming that he never could stand up to him, which is ironic considering he had all but conceded defeat before the Cosmic Hulk showed up. In any event, Ben was eventually restored back to his more traditional Thing form, somewhat reducing his strength, while Banner, with the help of the superhuman psychiatrist Doc Samson, attained a new Hulk form known as the Professor, which was an amalgamation of Bruce Banner, Joe Fix-It, and the Green Hulk. Rather than their usual brawls, this version of the Hulk had weekly arm wrestling contests with the Thing. A group of attacking supervillains attempted to interrupt one of these matches, but both competitors were thoroughly unbothered, even when the bar they were in was blown to smithereens. Although this did cause the table and chairs they were using to collapse, and so I think we can call this contest a draw. In another instance, they settled their differences in a game of table hockey, and while we don't know who won, at one point Ben was leading by 2 goals. The Thing did have a brief battle with the Professor incarnation of the Hulk when the Fantastic Four clashed with a group of secret defenders assembled by Doctor Strange, but this wasn't exactly a one-on-one fight. That was also the conflict in which Wolverine inadvertently left the Thing with a noticeable facial scar that stayed with him until it was eventually healed by Hyperstorm, the son of Franklin Richards and Rachel Summers from a divergent future timeline. In the meantime, Grimm and the Professor starred in a charity event in Las Vegas using virtual reality to have a special exhibition match to raise money for AIDS research. The two traded blows, and while they were on more even footing than past battles, it seems that the Hulk was gaining momentum when the time limit for the match was reached. Shortly after that, the subterranean supervillain known as the Mole Man abducted the Thing and the Hulk, as well as their allies, the Invisible Woman, the Human Torch, and the Pantheon member Atalanta. Seeking to restore his beloved Queen Kala, who had been severely weakened and rendered comatose during a subterranean war, the Mole Man forced the Thing and the Hulk to fight to the death so that he could harness the energy released by their conflict and use it to power his Rejuvenator. This time, the two superhuman opponents appeared to be evenly matched, and one of the Thing's strikes was even strong enough to knock out one of the Hulk's teeth. That battle ultimately came to an end when Grimm and the Professor both charged, slamming into each other with so much force that the Mole Man's energy rod overloaded and exploded. Naturally, the Mole Man then released one of his giant monsters, the Megator, which was opposed by Ben, Banner, and the other captives. While not returned quite to her physical prime, Kala was restored enough to move again and talked the Mole Man down, agreeing to marry him if he abandoned his quest for revenge, bringing that battle to an end. Ultimately, I think it's fair to say that while the Thing never actually beat the Professor incarnation of the Hulk, it seems like this matchup is more of a fair fight. In any event, the Hulk later returned to a more traditional savage persona and had even more brawls with the Thing, not all of which we can cover in tremendous detail here. In one instance, Ben tracked Banner down to a lonely desert cafe and insisted on talking to the Hulk, going so far as to slap Bruce around to force his transformation more than once. Ben reminisced about their past encounters, much to the Hulk's annoyance, but in the end, the Thing explained that the revelation that the Hulk and Bruce Banner were one and the same helped him accept his own humanity despite his monstrous appearance. Later, there was an incident in which the Hulk was caught in the blast of another gamma bomb explosion, causing him to take on a savage gray form and go on a rampage in Las Vegas. He was opposed by the Thing, and the two briefly fought, but this time Ben tried to talk his foe down, to little success. Despite his gray skin, this incarnation of the Hulk had his full strength and was more savage than ever before, hitting Ben harder than he'd ever been hit. In the end, it was Johnny Storm who saved the day, as it was his flame that snapped the Hulk back to sanity. While the two parted ways amicably, this fight served as another reminder that very few people stand a ghost of a chance against a fully unleashed Hulk. The collateral damage from that rampage also factored into the Illuminati's decision to exile the Hulk into space, leading to the events of Planet Hulk and subsequently World War Hulk, in which the Green Goliath returned to Earth and sought revenge on those who had banished him. Naturally, the Thing took on the Hulk during this conflict as well, but between his unyielding rage and exposure to a breached warp core on the planet Sakaar, this incarnation of the Hulk was the most powerful one yet. Not only did he shrug off Grimm's most powerful blows and defeat the Thing, but for the first time he single-handedly took down 3 members of the Fantastic Four. Of course, that conflict was eventually quelled, plenty more happened afterwards, and the Thing and the Hulk briefly clashed again during the Secret Empire event, although this was another quick fight and there are probably other clashes between them that I've neglected to mention. But there's one last one that I do want to talk about. Sometime after the events of World War Hulk, Ben Grimm received a serum from the Future Foundation, which made it so that for roughly 1 week every year, he would revert back to human form. Later, in the year that Ben married Alicia, Reed Richards gave him a precise countdown timer, and they began their honeymoon when his transformation was only hours away. However, Alicia's stepfather, the Puppet Master, was incensed that she had married the Thing without his permission, and used his radioactive clay to seize mental control over the Hulk. Well, I should point out that Ben did try to get his blessing and legitimately thought that he gave it, but what he didn't know was that Alicia had secretly used her father's clay against him to force him to approve of the marriage. With less than an hour and a half in the countdown when the Hulk arrived, Ben initially assumed that the Jade Giant was simply challenging him as he had done before, and tried to defuse the situation, outright admitting that the Hulk was the strongest one there was, and that he had nothing to prove. However, he soon realized that he wasn't going to be able to talk his way out of this, and desperately tried to protect his wife and other civilians from the attacking Hulk. Doing his best to dodge the Hulk's heavy blows, it didn't take Ben long to realize who was pulling the beast's strings behind the scenes. As the timer counted down, the Thing and the Hulk traded blows once again, and Ben realized that this immortal incarnation of the Hulk was not one that he could outfight or outwit. However, Alicia assured him that no matter how much brains or brawn his opponent had, Ben Grimm always had more heart. As the Hulk charged him down for a final time, the Thing squared up and with only seconds remaining on the timer, put every ounce of his strength into one final punch, hitting the Hulk harder than he had ever hit anything before. With a vibranium wedding band on his finger, his fist collided with the monster's face with so much force that the rocky outer layer of skin on the Thing's arm shattered. Not only did this knock the Hulk down, but the feedback destroyed the puppet master's puppet, freeing the Hulk from his control. Ben Grimm claimed victory and seconds later reverted to human form and passed out. He awakened a week later back at the Baxter Building and back in Thing form, with a vibranium cast on his damaged arm. He was naturally disappointed that he missed out on the opportunity of having a human honeymoon, but Alicia assured him that they would have plenty more years together to start a family and to look on the bright side. After a decade and a half of brawls, beatings, and battles, the Thing had finally, definitively won a one-on-one fight with the Incredible Hulk. At the end of the day, the Hulk might still be the strongest one there is, but Benjamin J. Grimm, the ever-lovin' blue-eyed Thing, is certainly no slouch. Okay, that's all I have for you this week, but thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it on your favorite social media. As always, the issues referenced in this video are listed in the description below if you would like to read them for yourself, as well as links to other places you can find me. Let me give a special shout out to all of my Patreon and Ko-fi supporters, Twitch subscribers, and YouTube members, all of whom help make the channel possible. By signing up for any ongoing amount on any of these platforms, you'll get your name in these special thanks, but Patreon is the one that helps determine what topics get covered on the channel via monthly polls. And of course, if there is anything in particular that you want me to talk about, be sure to let me know in the comments. But that is indeed all I have for you this week, and so until next time, true believers, it's clobbering time!